So let's talk about the All Star game. The All Star game is right now, not obviously in this moment, but in 2024, it's going to be played in Indiana. It's in February 18th, pretty close from now, about 2 weeks. And let's talk about what does this All Star game imply, what can we expect, and what is the procedure, and like who are going to be the All Stars, what are they going to play like? What is the format? What is going to be special about the weekend? Let's talk about that. First, I do want to say that the All Star this season will be di- divided into East and West. East and West is obviously a format that is done because the fans really wanted that to be the case. People always wanted East to West to be the format because it makes it a cooler, more enjoyable experience for everybody. I'm sorry, but if we really want to talk about that, right, like East and West is just the way to go when you look at all of the factors that are in place. First, the East versus the West brings an excitement to the game. It makes it much more, like there's a theme to it. It's not like just a bunch of players picking the other best players. Because even though we do get some drama, I'm telling you that apart from the NBA players, no one cares about the drama. Like, I care because I love the NBA. I talk about it. I have this channel. But a lot of people don't care about, like, why did Giannis pick Dame over Middleton in the first round of the All Star draft? Like in the end, they all tamper, they all do these things. It's not like we can stop that. So East to West brings a format that's clear, it's identifiable, and it's made in a very good light since you can clearly differentiate what is the difference between these stars. Secondly, with this All Star game, we do have already the starters and the reserves. The reserves, the one thing we don't have is the coaches, but I'm gonna call it right now. I think the coach for the West is going. I think the coach for the West is going to be Chris Finch of the, Minnesota Timberwolves. I think him having their number one record throughout most of the season, and also being able to lift that team from the position that they were up back to this, the position that they are now, where they're tied for first place with the Oklahoma City Thunder. I do believe they're going to give him the edge. If not, then they're going to give it to probably Tyronn Lue of the Clippers or the Thunder coach, which I forgot his name, Mark Daignault. But I think he's young, and he is the betting favorite to win the Coach of the Year. But I do think that they won't give him the All Star just because of his youth. He has time, and the Thunder are going to be good for years to come. In the West, obviously the Bucks are not going to get the Coach of the Year. I just said that because even though they're the second seed, I think Joe Mazzulla has got this in the bag. If not, they're going to give it to Tom Thibodeau for what he's done with the Knicks as they have them in the 3 seed. And if it's not Joe Mazzulla or Tom Thibodeau, I honestly don't see any other coach. Like, Nick Nurse is amazing, but Philly has dropped off way too much in the standings. Finally, when it comes to this coaching thing, I do believe that it will not matter a lot. These games in the present have become very uncompetitive. And if this year's All Star game is filled with these lackluster shots from half court, 165 points, like I'm just honestly gonna be very mad. I want these players to compete. I want them to go for each other's heads. I want the MVPs to play against each other, and I want the players to really put their forth the best effort, because even though yes the league is more talented than ever, and getting injured in an all-star game is honestly very sad and is something that nobody wants, we do want to see these players and these teams really be able to stand out in their respective fields. Another thing that I wanted to say, it was crazy to me that now Anthony Davis has 9 All-Star selections, one less than Stephen Curry. I do feel like that's a stat which has to be studied because Stephen Curry is apparently a top 10 player of all time, but with 10 All-Stars, that's kind of crazy. So now let's talk about the important part, which is the teams. For the East, the starters are Tyrese, Dame, Giannis, Jason Tatum, and Embiid. I don't think there's anything weird about these starters. Everyone knew it. Maybe Tyrese Halliburton was a bit up in the air, but he really wasn't. You know, Tyrese is amazing. He got an All Star last year. He's been carrying the Indiana Pacers, being the best guard in the East. And maybe Damian Lillard should have been traded in for Jalen Brunson, but I do believe Damian Lillard is better TV, and he's a bigger name, so it's easier to have him in the starting lineup. Apart from there, Giannis, Tatum, and Embiid always start in the All-Star game. That's nothing to marvel at. They're three of the greatest players. They're three of the top 5, top 10 players in the league. Apart from this, in the reserves, we have Jalen Brunson, Tyrese Maxey, and Donovan Mitchell as the guards, right? Jalen Brunson, Tyrese Maxey, Donovan Mitchell, they all deserve it a lot. I don't think there's any snubs here. I do think that they all deserve it and that this was the right three to pick. For the forwards, we have Jaylen Brown, Paolo Banchero, and Julius Randle. I'm surprised Julius made it. You know, I thought they would have given it to some other player. You know, maybe I thought they were going to give another team some rep in the All-Star game, maybe more. But I do believe that with the push that the Knicks made at the end and with how famous, you know, their franchise is, they did deserve to have two. Apart from this, they sit pretty well right now because Julius Randle did deserve it. But the only thing that surprises me is that Jimmy Butler is nowhere to be found in this equation. Apart from there, in the center position off the reserves, we have Bam Adebayo. He deserved it a lot. I know that a lot of people want to talk a lot, but Bam Adebayo is an amazing player. And I'm a Heat fan, so I'm glad that we got one inside. With the Western Conference, we have Luka Doncic, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, which was a very controversial two-guard selection since the West has the best guards in the NBA by far. You know, like Luka, Shai, Devin Booker, Stephen Curry, and Anthony Edwards are all the guards that were selected. And if you are being honest, Devin Booker and Stephen Curry had an argument to be starters in certain aspects, but they really weren't. And I don't think that they deserved it as much as Luka and Shai. I think Luka and Shai have been the best two guards in the league. And I'm sorry. Like, Steph Curry is amazing. He's a legend. He's a top 10, 15 player of all time. But he does not deserve to be a starter this season because the All-Star game is per season. So I don't think that it's a valid argument to make to say that Steph Curry should have been here. That it should have been a starter. In the forward for the starters, we have Kevin Durant and LeBron James. I don't think that we should argue this one. Kevin Durant and LeBron were going to be All-Stars anyway, and they're the two biggest names in the league. So I feel like we should just leave them there. And, you know, they're the faces of the league. I feel like it's good that they start because people mostly know them and people love them as the stars and as the faces. And if we're being honest, both of them have been playing pretty good defense this year, apart from the obvious offensive numbers that they're both going to put up. Finally, for center, we have Nikola Jokic. I'm just going to silence myself and keep going because the same thing with Joel Embiid, the same thing with Giannis and Tatum, the same thing with Luka and Shai. We don't have to talk about them. They've been so spectacular that they deserve the starting spot. I'm talking about all NBA guys right now. Devin Booker, Steph Curry, and Anthony Edwards, as I said, are the three guards off the bench. They all really deserve it. The only person who people think was snubbed was De'Aaron Fox. But with the formula, I do believe Devin Booker deserved it more. And Phoenix as a team probably deserved it more than the Kings, even though I do think that the Kings should have had an All-Star. For the forwards, they had Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, and Karl-Anthony Towns. Obviously, they put Cat there because since the Timberwolves have been the number one seed, it is just fair to give them two All-Stars, and it's more of a coach's thing. By the way, remember that the reserves are picked by the coaches. Unlike the starters are picked by the fans, the coaches, and the media. Meanwhile, the reserves are all coaches. So please remember that don't go judging fans. Like this was the coaches who did it. So Paul George and Kawhi, obviously they were gonna make it. I'm surprised that they both of them made it in, but the Clippers have been amazing, and Karl Anthony Towns is also there. Finally, for the center off the bench, we have Anthony Davis. And through all these guys, we have a lot of experience, a lot of great players. And I do believe that this is the All Star ballot that is going to show us what the future of the league is going to look like. There are guys here which have 2 All Star appearances, which are superstars. There's guys here which have 20, LeBron. And I do believe that this is a correct representation of like when LeBron, Kevin Durant, and Steph Curry fade out, who are the names that we're going to be seeing at the top of the league.